All right, we are going to continue along on making a projectile that will interact with a target. Now, to start off with, I have created some very simple animations to go with our character. So, just going to start us off by actually creating a folder for animations. Right, and then we're going to drag and drop those that you can download from the Magic Day on TC Learn there. So we're just going to drag these guys in here. Now we do need to set the skeleton to the SKUEFN mannequin, and then I just say import, right? Now, these are going to be useful for because we want to spawn the magic attack off of the fire magic animation. Not the greatest, but it'll achieve what we're trying to do. Can obviously find better ones, although I've included some aim offsets for at least being able to do things. Right? We are going to open up the idle. Go to its details and click on the loop. Now, the reason why is because obviously idle you want to loop as well, right? So we got a little bit of an idle here kind of going on for him holding up the hand for the magic attack. We can also technically use this for aiming when, which we'll do for the grappling as well, right? Now, we do need to set up though the offsets themselves. Because they are an additive one. They are a single frame, and we need to actually set the under the additive settings for each of them. We have to go down here, set it to mesh space, and set the select for animation, and then we want to choose the magic idle that I provided. Right, so magic idle, just like that, and then we want to do that for each of the offsets. So we scroll down, we look for the additive settings, right? Mesh, select animation, and then do the idle. So again, hit save. Don't worry about the timeline tweaking out like that. Let's see here. Select animation, magic. Right, so basically we're going to have a miniature version of our basically an aim offset that we can use for basically what a third person would use for their aim offset, right? So we're going to right click and create a offset itself. So animation. Now I'm not going to use the regular offset because it has both directions, and I only gave you for up and down. So we want to use the legacy one aim offset 1D, right? And then we want to make it of course, the SKUEFN, right? And I'll call this AO_magic. And then I can come in here, and we can open this up, right? So for the offset, we want to set a few things. Opening up the horizontal section here, we can say direction, right? And then we can set this to the site of -90, very similar to the offset that the current one is using for the head turning, right? We're going to use -90 and +90, and I'm also going to say snap to grid because we want it to snap to grid. Now, while we're here, we're also going to select the partial slot here. Now, if you don't have one of these, right, you can go to Windows. Then what we want is animation slot manager. See here. Right here, anim slot manager. Right. If you turn that on, then just dock it down here. We're going to add a partial slot for the right arm. So right arm, right. And then I'll hit the enter. There we go. So that way we have the slot available to us when we get into actually setting up the blend space for our animation, right? So first off, we're going to come over here, and we want to drag in the middle one, right? So this is where we're the AOID, right? And basically idle. And then we've got for the upper, right? So I'm going to put that one over here, and the one that is down, so directional down, right? That way, if I were to hold the control key, you can see that we move it up and down now. And it already populated down here in the advanced settings, the idle that we have. Perfect. So now that we are done with that, right, we do want to also right click on the fire and create a anim montage. Oops, create anim montage, right? Because that's what we're going to use to fire our attack eventually. But it's good to have that all set up. Now, to start actually getting it working, we do need to actually come in here. Make sure you grab the AP mover, since that's the parent class that we are using for it, right? And then I am going to drag this over here. Right. So now, what we need to do is we need to come all the way to the front here. Right. We're going to play around here, but let's go to the actual event graph first, because we need to actually get something from. Actually, we'll also want to open up our skill component. So go to our blueprints, right? So we made that component skills for our grappling hook last time, right? Now, the reason why is because we also want to use these variables is aiming that we have here, right? Now, we're going to use them to help dictate whether we have our character's arm up or not. Now, we already have the variable here, so what I need to do is actually go back here, and then what we want to do is right-click underneath the initialization blueprint here. So we're going to move this up a little, and then we'll right-click here and say get owner, right? Get owner actor, and then we want to get component by class, right? We want to get our BPC skills. Now, what we want to do from here is drag off the blue pin and actually check if it is valid, right? Because it's always good to check if these things are valid before we promote them to a variable for later, right? And then obviously right click on this and say promote to variable, right? And then you can say skill comp for short. There we go. I'll fix the O later. And then on the event blueprint update animation, we want to use a sequence here, so that way, because they have some because they have this here, right? So if this fails for whatever reason, right, none of this over here runs, right? So we want to add in a sequence. That way it'll run that independently, right? And then we can then now bring in the skill comp. In fact, I'll actually fix that now. Let's see here. There we go. Perfect, right? We'll now drag this in as a get version and convert that to a validated get. The reason, again, it's always good to have these checks in place. Now, what I'm going to do is actually drag these guys all up, because we want to have a little extra room here, right? Now, what we want to do is drag off of here and say get is aiming, right? And we want to just promote that to a variable, right? And then we can say is character aiming, except for keep doing there we go, is character aiming, and we got that. right? Now, that is perfect, right? So this will allow us to come back here and easily check, hey, is our character aiming? If so, then we can do whatever we need in the anim graph. Now, inside the anim graph, we've got a little bit of setup. Because we need to cache our current animations, right? So what I'm going to look for is the cache, and then we want to save a new cache pose for locomotion, right? And now that we saved the pose, we can now come down here and say, look for locomotion. Use cache pose, just like that. Now, what we can do here is I'm going to drag in my magic idle as well as the aim offset here. Now, this idle goes into the base pose because that is going to be, again, the one that drives our offset. Now, we can click on this node here. Now, we want to make sure you scroll down and look for the direction, right? Our horizontal, or well, technically it's the vertical axis that we set up, but since we only have one, we want to look for AO and set the Y variable as our offset, since we are using technically inside here for the aim offset. If we look, they use the AO.x and Y for the player's head offset, right? Now, what we need to do now is actually also bring in a default slot. And then we can switch by selecting the default slot and then in the details here to our right arm, right? Because what we want to do, dragging off of our cache locomotion, is we want to look for layered blend by bone. Layer blend per bone. Ugh, say that 10 times fast. There we go. Right, so in this layer, we can go to layer setup, and then you can see we have 0 indexes, right? We want to add one. Now, the name in convention here is we want to grab the right arm itself. So if I were to go over to the skeleton, right, it doesn't really matter how I get there, but the main point is I want to grab the actual name of like the upper right arm, right? So my clavicle R_R, right? I can right click it and say copy bone name, right? And then we can then go back to the animation here, and then we can then paste it in here, not tag. Otherwise it won't work, right? Now this is where we would use our cache pose again as a way to technically allow us to also say we want to be blending by bool. So let's say bool, right? Because otherwise we don't want to be really doing this, right? So if if true, if false, we want to be doing our regular locomotion, right? And then we can drag this guy over here. Just put him here, right? Now, the Boolean, well, is character aiming, right? So if we're not aiming, we're not going to be doing anything, right? So then we can see if we hit play, I aim, there we go, right? Then when I let go of my aim, the character doesn't do the animation, right? So we've set up the animation part. Let's see here. Now that we've got that going, let's at least get it so that we can play the anim montage in the hero, right? So we're going to create another action input. All right, so go into your input folders, right click, and then we can then do inputs, and then we'll do action there. So do IA fire, because, well, technically that's what we're doing. Open up our IMC sandbox, right? And then I'll just come over here, add the IA fire, and do the left click. Oh, undo. I didn't want to change the grapple. I wanted to change that one to my left mouse button, right? Make sure it's not the right, because the right one's currently what they're using for aiming, right? So back over here, right? In fact, we should actually come along here and comment here. So this is grapple. So I'm going to hit C, grapple, let's see here. Grappling, right? That's enable grapple. So enable. Grapple. There we go. And then what we've got here is the well, this is the aiming. So I'm going to aiming, right? And then can then also drag this down here. This will be grapple check, or can grapple check, right? Oh. There. All right. Let's see. We're going to add a variable. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. All right. Can or is magic enabled? Enabled. Right. Now this is where we'll want to go back to our skill interface, because we need to add a function for enabling magic. Function enable. Magic. There we go. And then this is going to need to take in the a skeletal mesh component. Skeletal mesh actor component. Skeletal mesh component. And then this is the animating actor, right? There we go. That way we have access to the skeletal mesh to play anim montages, right? So we'll want to actually go to the hero. So back into our blueprint folder here, find our hero, right? And then we can go up to interfaces, and then, oops, no, capture input, no. I want, oh, right, back to the components, sorry, that's where we had our interface for enable magic. Now, enable magic is simply just promoting the animactor or animating actor to a variable. There we go. And then once we have the animating actor here set up, so that we could even just leave this here, it's not enable grapple anymore, just enable skills, we'll say, for a section. Here's skills. There we go. All right. Now, back in the player, right, off of here, right, so we want a custom event, and then enable Let's see here. Don't know why I did that. Why did I put... Yeah, no, we'll do enable magic. But I want to Control D for the BP skill. Enable magic message, right? And then what we need to do is put in the skeletal mesh. Now it has to be the first one, not if it, even though we are using Echo or any other skeletal mesh as a child, because this one, the main skeletal mesh is what's driving the animation, right? So that's why we need to put that one there. Now, yeah, let's see. Enable magic players magic enable players magic, so that I don't get confused. And I'm just going to also enable players grappling hook. There. Right. So, off of begin play, we do need to call this temporarily. All right. So enable players magic. Right. Just to, again, these will get eventually moved to the quest system. Once we get going. Right. So, and then back inside our BP skills, we do need to say IA, and then we want to say fire. And then off of here, we'll take the animating actor. And we're going to also put in can fire projectile, right? Because we want to have, we'll drag that in temporarily, right? Because we only want to be able to fire the projectile if we're not already firing one. So we'll do that. Then we'll say can fire projectile. So if can fire projectile, I should also set it to true here, right? So that way it enables us, right? And then off of true, we want it to set it to false. And then we want to play, play anim, yeah, just, there we go, play in a montage, right? And then we'll just look for our magic fire. Right, and then what we're going to do on completion is set it back to true, so that way we can play the animation again, right? That's our failsafe, right? Now, if I come back up here, though, I do need to make sure, so on complete, we can also make sure that we come up here. Now, knowing the anim montage, if I come over here, right, back to our animations, open up the montage, right? In fact, I actually have to set up the montage to make sure that we are only playing from the right arm slot. I'm going to just hit save and close, and then I'll reopen it so that way we can actually see the animation playing, right? The main thing here that we want to make sure that we're paying attention to is that, well, we're only like 30 seconds, so it's like, you know, roughly 1 second long, right? So we're going to want to then go back up here, to the begin or the aiming part, because ultimately we don't want to stop aiming right when we let go, right? We want to check if the can fire, so if we can fire projectile, technically, or is firing, you know what, I'm going to say is firing. Sorry about that. So is firing projectile, right? And then if that is true, we're going to, if false, we still want to do that, but we want to make a little more room here with a delay of like 1.2 seconds before you then drop everything else, right? That way we can then easily go about our task, right? So I'm just going to compile and save there, right? And then we're going to test this out, right? So if I hit the button, right, we do technically play the anim montage, which is cool. But if I were to fire our montage and then let go, did I do that backwards? If is firing projectile is true, right. Oh wait. Oh right. No. No. Okay, so can fire. Is makes more sense. Sorry. Then if it is false. Sorry. So if, yeah, all right. No wonder why I had it backwards. There we go. You know what? No, I don't like tying it to the same one because technically it'd be false off the start, which isn't what we want. So is firing projectile as well. There. And then we'll set this is firing. We are getting a lot of booleans, but that's okay. And then on complete, it turns it off, right? That way, up here, I can come back here, delete that one. So is firing that way. There. If is firing is true. There. Otherwise, we'll go back to not aiming, right? So therefore, now when I hit compile and play, and then we shoot that, right, and let go, it still holds off and does the animation, right? Perfect. That way we don't lose or break the things while we're mid animating. Perfect. All right. So we are also going to want to spawn a projectile. Now, to actually spawn a projectile, we are going to need to make a projectile first. So we'll go over to our blueprint folder. And then I am just going to right click. Actually, before we start that, let's go to Fab really quickly and grab a particle effect, right? So if we go to visual effects and do the pricing, show only free product. Sadly, there's only like a small selection of free stuff here. But the main one I'm looking for is, for right now, I suggest just grabbing like these small fires. They make a cool particle effect, right? So we'll just grab those. All right. So now what I can do is right click, create a new blueprint class of type actor, BP underscore projectile. Projectile, right? And what we want to do here is add a sphere collision. I'm going to make it the root. I'm going to leave it at its current size, but I'm also going to add a system. So we want a Niagara system here, right? So Niagara system. And then you want to make sure I'm just going to grab like we'll grab the blue fire. Right, yeah, because that's cool, right? Perfect. Don't have to worry about too much, except for I am going to drag it down so it's a little more into there. There we go. Perfect. I wonder, can I actually rotate it? Oh. Yeah. Better. That might work better. Perfect. There we go. Now, we want to add a projectile movement. Projectile movement component, because we want to set this to like 2000 to start us off. We want to also turn off the gravity, so that way when we do spawn this thing, it's there. Now, for the collision itself, we do want to come down here and turn on I swapped them. I want to make sure the collision is the parent object. Oh shoot. So now I gotta reset my position. Do 90 again and move it over here. There we go. Perfect. All right, back to the collision. So it's right now on overlap dynamic, right? Now, the main thing that we want to do is basically set this to block all dynamic and generate hit events, right? The reason why is because, well, obviously we want to make sure that we have a hit event. Then we also want to give our class quickly a tag as well. Let's see, projectile, right? Just like that. And then now we have the tag there. While we're here, I'm just double checking my settings. Yeah, block all dynamic, generate hit events. And then off of event hit. So we're going to search for hit. We can do a bunch of other things here, right? But for right now, we want to just hold a delay of like 2 seconds, because we basically want to also destroy the actor. Destroy. What? There we go. Destroy actor. There. All right. For right now. Right. Well, technically we could check if, and in fact, I don't know why I added the tag here. You know what? We're just going to say puzzle target. So has, we're going to check if it has tag, right? And I'm just going to say puzzle target, right? Has tag puzzle target. Then we're going to drag this over here with a branch, right? We're checking if it has that, right? The reason why is because I'm going to check, hey, do we have a that. If we do, we want to delay it. If it does have the tag, we want to delay it by a couple seconds so that way it registers that we've hit something, right? So we've checked, hey, does it have the puzzle target, which I'm going to copy this again because we want to make our target as well, right? So while we're here, I'm going to go to materials. I'm just going to make a target material mm underscore target, and I'm just going to put a there. We'll do red and convert to parameter color. Drag that over here, and then we'll just leave that for right now. The main point is I want to just create a mesh. So I'm going to make a mesh folder. Meshes, right. And again, I'm just going to make something quick in modeling. Choose current folder. I'm going to do a cylinder. I'm going to set this to dynamic because that way I can just do that. And then we're going to use the arrow here. Yeah, no, I'm not going to put anything in the center. We'll just leave it as a cylinder. So ultimately what I want to do now is, because I made it a dynamic mesh, I have to actually convert it first. So we'll go to the XForm here, we'll bake the transform, and then we'll actually convert this to a static mesh. And then I can be like SM target, right? Except for target, right? And then I can come over here. I can look for underscore target. That way I have that. I'm going to go to collision and make it this way. That way, again, if the player shoots it in the hole, that's perfectly fine. And then block all simple and complex. You can see if there was any simple there. There we are. So that's perfect. I can now delete that, and we can go to our blueprints, and we can go blueprint class, actor, BP, target. There we go. And what I want to do is then add a static mesh, and I'm going to select our SM underscore target. There we go. I'm going to move it back so it's in the center a little. Doesn't really matter. Then I do want to make sure that I come over here. I'm going to also add in our BPI interact that we had, right? The reason why is because we're going to use the interaction here, but we're not going to add a channel. We'll look at that another time. But for right now, we can just say print string, right? Say hello. And that will be what we call when we interact, right? Because we also need to go to class and add our tag, right? So tag, do I still have it in the copy and paste? Yeah, puzzle, right? Now, the reason why we also want to go back to our projectile, right, if it is, right? So if other actor does have that, we also want to interact. You can also technically, add in does object implement interface, right? We want to make sure BPI. There we go. Indirect. And then we do an and Boolean. And we plug that in here, right? Because ultimately, there we go. We'll do is this there. There. Then tidy that up. There. Otherwise, we want to destroy actor. All right. Now we just need to make the ability to actually fire our projectile. Now, where I want to do that in the animation montage that we created, right? So we're going to put like an animation notify, right? So if we pause the animation, right, we scrub along here, I'm going to probably put it right around here, or right very close to the end, right, just before they kind of get there, and then we'll spawn it right there, right? But now to do that, we want to close some of these things. That way we only have, let's see here, the skeleton mesh we can close. Let's see here. Now, we want to create a animation notify. Now, we can do that in our blueprint folder, right? I'm going to create another folder, animation notifies. Then we want to go to blueprints, but we want to search our classes here for notify, right? So animation notify, and then this is animation or an or a animation yeah, an. Oops. So an, and then we can do spawn fire. Yeah, since we have a fireball anyway. Double click to open it, and you want to do on receive notify. The reason why is because we can get the mesh component, right? Now, the reason why we need the mesh component is because we need the location, right? So we want to drag off of here. We want to get socket location. And in our case, we are looking for hand R. Now it's lowercase h and underscore R, right? This will give us the location on the skeleton, which I should have left open. If you go to characters, mesh, right, and we open up the skeleton, we find hand R, it's L, and R, right? You can also copy it from here, right? Main idea is that we also have there. Technically, I could grab this actually. I'm going to copy that actually. Copy. Control C, because that actually makes a lot more sense. That's like a already pre-done socket, so which that works out in our benefit, right? So I'm going to drag this over here, and then I'm going to disconnect that because we want to right click and look for spawn actor from class. We want to do BP underscore projectile. Oh, projectile. We want to right click on the spawn location and split it, right? Now we do want this as the transform. I'm going to drag this down here. There we go. So we've got the transform. But to get the rotation, we are going to say get look or find look at rotation, right? Which is going to take the start of obviously the socket where we are, right? Now for the target, that is going to be off of a line trace, right? We want, so I'm just going to do a line trace by channel, because anything visible is going to be what we're looking for. And then we can hook this up here. I think this is a little more pretty. There. Right. Off of our hit, we want to check break. We also want to do select over here. So select. Because we want to select by whether we hit something. So I'm going to drag this over here, right? Now it'll depend, right? Because if we don't hit anything, we still want it to fly in the direction that we are going, right? So for that, we need, obviously, if we hit something, it's the impact there. Otherwise, it'll be the trace end, right? So that way, for sure, we've got the trace end location or wherever we're trying to hit, right? Now, to get the actual location of where we're trying to hit, we need to get the player controller. Get player controller. Now, for the player controller, we also want to get the viewport size, right? The reason why we want to get the viewport size is because we want to get the middle of the viewport, right? So we need to divide the viewport by 2, right? So we turn this to a float, set 2. We can also split because we're going to be converting our screen space. So convert screen local to world space. No, not mouse. Did that wrong. Convert screen space to local world space. There we go. And then we plug our X and Y position, right? Now, this is going to go into the start. I'm going to move this over, right? Reason why is because I also want to hit a plus here. We can add there. And then we also need 2 times, since we need a multiplier, right? And we plug that in here. And then the reason for that is because we're going to say float, and then this would be 1,000, right? Or 10,000, roughly. There. That will give us nice projectile. And this is the functionality, right? So if we now go back over here, no, this is not the montage. So I want to find the montage, right? In the track here, we're just going to right click and say add animation montage, spawn fireball, right? And then if I now hit play, aim, and play our animation montage. I'm going to put it back a little. And we'll see there. Yeah, because did hook it up, right? Yeah. Okay. Why is it not? Magic montage, right? Yeah. We have spawn. Yeah. receive notify. Actually, I'm going to for duration because we're going to see. Yeah, so we just aren't spawning it. Why not? I'm going to go to projectile. Oh, right. That's probably why. It's probably destroying itself on the projectile. So if I go to the projectile sphere, right, we want to make sure we turn off. So we're going to go over here, custom, right? We're probably hitting the player. So that's probably what's going on. So I'm going to turn off the pawn for right now, right? Now, you know what? Let's just go over here. Other actor has tag. And then I'm just going to back it up. We're just going to add another branch. Actually. And then I'm just going to say control to move that here. Off of false. Right, and I'm just going to say player. And then what I'm going to do is actually go to our blueprints, find hero, class default, tag. Make this one here, player, right, that way. Now if I hit play, but it's not moving. It's not moving. Actually, I'm just going to drag in the projectile. I just want to see something. Okay, so it does move. All right. Does it stop moving? Yeah. Know what? Yeah. Let's see here. Come over here. Just going to see something. Oh. I am just going to turn off the pawn. Yeah, there we go. Right, so we're doing our tests and things like that. All right, I'm going to pause it here, and then we'll come back with, actually, no, I shouldn't have to pause it. All right, so we've got that. I drag in my target, and I now hit my target. And you can see we're getting the hello, right? So that's a good point right there. Then, in order to do something, right, we can just have it, you know, technically this could be like any type of gizmo, right? Whether it's open door or something, right? The main thing is the target interacts, and then you could technically have, you know, this could also technically go, you know, we can have in here, let's see here, for right now, let's just say we want to activate something. I'm just going to actually make a quick torch. Oh, why is it lagging? There we go. Right, so we'll make a blueprint here. Actor, BP. Know what? We'll say fire. No. Baz. Yeah, we'll do fire. Yeah. Or no, puzzle. Puzzle fire, right? Because ultimately what I'm going to do is just add a cylinder. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Cylinder. I'm going to scale it in like this, and then I'm going to add a particle. Niagara, and then we're going to put this on top. And then we're going to say activate. Oops, activate. We're looking for auto activate. The reason why is we're going to then go to look for our fires. I'm going to grab the green one because why not, right? And then while we're at it, we can even just do another class of, or no, we'll just do custom. Make a custom event. Custom event activate. Activate fire or activate particle. Right, activate particle, right? So then just going to say p fire. There we go. And then we can be like activate. There we go. And then we can also say play sound at location. And then we look for fire. No, okay. Let's just say button queue, but you know, then we say get actor location, and plug that in there. Right, so we've got that there, puzzle fire, right? So I'm going to drag this in, pull it up. In fact, actually, I'll go back to the puzzle just so that way I can pull these guys up. There we go. Right, that way the gizmo's at there, and I can even hit end. Right, the main point here, though, is I can now use this for anything if I wanted to. If I go to the target, I'll just say actor door reference. Actually, I am going to no, I need to use the puzzle. Yeah, let's just do that. So we'll go back here to not to the projectile, but the target here. BP underscore puzzle. Right, so because the reason why is that way I can then just be like, hey, get puzzle vector. Right, the main idea here is we'll convert this to validated get, and then we'll just say, hey, if so, activate particle. There we go. Just like that, right? So now can get in here. Oh, of course, right. I didn't set it, right? So that brings us back here. Actually, I have to make sure the target, I didn't mean to close that. We have to make sure that it's instance editable, right? Because now we can click this here and make sure we set it, because otherwise it does nothing. But then now when I shoot, you can see there, and it also technically played sound, but it wasn't, I didn't have it routed to the sound. But with that, we have the puzzles mechanic for firing our things, right? We'll look at other puzzles like platforms and things like that next.